Hosana has dropped his entire carcass out of the tree, which obviously made a big thump, and so now he's looking a bit panicked in case any hyenas come their way. So far nothing has come, and he's now, I think, going to try and tuck in to food. If no hyena rocked up with that thump, then there's none that are too close, because it came crashing down with a serious amount of noise. Yes, you dropped your whole kill, you silly boy. Luckily there's no hyenas around, otherwise he would have lost it. But I'm surprised, because we saw a hyena earlier, and the way that carcass hit the ground, it must have made a serious noise. Now, every now and then he keeps looking towards the west at the moment, and I thought for a second the way he kind of twitched that maybe something was around, but it doesn't seem like it. Seems like he's okay, and just kind of licking his chops. He's had a good feed at least up there, and you can see he's kind of looking around, and that carcass does not look nice, does it? It looks rather like it's kind of dry, rotten, and covered in flies. I was saying earlier, there really is a lot there, and he's being constantly bugged by them. But it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to keep it down on the ground for a little bit and just kind of get his energy back a little bit and catch his breath from running down the tree quickly. And once he's kind of sorted that out, then you're going to find he'll probably put it back up once again. It'll be nice to watch him take it up, because even though it's not a very heavy carcass now, a lot's been eaten, it's still an awkward carcass. There's a lot of dangling legs and bits of horn and all kinds of things that can catch, and so watching a leopard take something like a bushbuck up a tree is always fascinating to watch. Now you can see, even though that animal has been pretty much stripped and there's not really much meat on it, it's still a rather large carcass from end to tail. Now let's see, is he going to grab it from the bottom and pick it up and take it? Looks like he's going to go up. Let's see, there we go. Teddy, indeed, he does not have a carcass pillow now, unfortunately for him. He's going to have very little of his carcass left at this rate. I think the poor hyenas actually stole most of it from him, unfortunately, so he doesn't have much of a carcass pillow at all. But I suppose he could use it on the ground, couldn't he? I mean, I suppose a ground pillow could also work, I would imagine. The ground pillow might work. He's dragged it very close to the tree now, so that he just has to basically pick it up and just take it straight up into the tree itself. He doesn't have to worry too much. If hyenas come, he can just grab it and then up into the tree without too much hesitation, which will be nice and easy for him. And there he goes. Are you going to go up into the tree, Hosana? No, he's just looking around, just checking, making sure nobody's come while he's been dragging it. It's almost like he's playing with this carcass to a degree as well, which is quite interesting. Now look at how he's watching. As soon as there's a francolin that makes a bit of noise, he's looking very kind of alert and checking in every direction. The one nice thing is that it's very clear here, so there's a nice opening, so he'll be able to see anything coming fairly quickly. Oh, bless you, Hosana. But he won't have to worry too much about oncoming animals catching him by surprise. It's fairly kind of clear, and he'll be able to see anything that comes his way. But isn't that beautiful? He really is a good looking leopard. He, I think, has grown a little bit now that we've kind of seen him going up and down, but not too much. He's definitely not kind of hugely bigger, but he's definitely bigger than what he was a few weeks ago when he first arrived back on the scene. And all those kind of weeks ago, it was been a long time now since he kind of came back to this area, and so it's always nice to kind of have him. What are you doing, Hosana? It almost seems like he's playing with it. You can see, just looking around again just to make sure, and I'm surprised that he's dragged it further away from the tree. So nonsensical, that's obviously very dependent on the leopards itself. So the bigger the leopard, generally the more weight it can lift, and the more powerful it is. And so you take somebody like Anderson as opposed to a leopard like Hosana. Anderson should be able to lift a lot more than what Hosana can. Also, age will play a role. So an older male will start to get a little bit more kind of slower and weaker than maybe a male in his prime that's 7 or 8 years old. So it depends, but I can tell you that I've seen them lift fairly large carcasses. I've seen a male leopard take an adult female kudu, which is, I mean, that's a good, I would say, 400 pounds at least. Well, maybe not quite 400 pounds, maybe it's around there. So let's say 350, call it, plus their own body weight up into a tree. So that gives you an idea of how strong they can be. Even Anderson has taken baby giraffe, which will probably weigh pretty much close to that as well. So they are very, very powerful animals. I mean, that would be the real upper limit, and it's not something that they can do very easily. Generally, though, they manage quite fine. A big male leopard will take a fully grown impala male, which is close to 200 pounds, and put that up into a tree very, very quickly. So, you know, it's amazing the amount of strength that these guys have. And like I say, it's not only, you know, the carcass that they take up, it's also, you know, their own body weight as well. But look at all the flies that have come up now that he kind of let the carcass settle and he's moving it now. Lots and lots of flies all over him. Amazing. Right, now, out of all of this and kind of Hosana playing around with his carcass and moving about, it seems as though Tingana is still trying to quench his thirst after a very hot day.
Hosana is still negotiating for his kill back into a tree. That side here, I have got Tingana, who is now still busy quenching his thirst. You can see that the stomach is growing very, very, very big now. He has been drinking all along non-stop. Look at that. So this cat has been so very thirsty. It has been hot for him. So all I want to see now is him standing so that I can see the size of the stomach. He's just drinking non-stop. Safari live rules, it takes time before this animal starts to lose their teeth, but as they are aging, that is when they start breaking the teeth, losing the teeth, and once that happens, it means now it will be difficult for them to eat the meat, and that is what normally affects their lifespan. Look at that stomach, looks very big. So there is another vehicle here. I'm not alone at the sighting. Don't get surprised. Some other people are also shining some of the spotlights and the cameras. So now let's go back to my colleague.
Well, unfortunately, Hosana missed out. The hyena has come out of nowhere, and Hosana just didn't have time to get it up into the tree. He hesitated for a second too long, and the hyena came bounding in and has just pushed him off straight away. That hyena didn't think twice about trying to get rid of Hosana, and it seems like maybe it's one of the hyenas that maybe fed on this carcass last night. You can see it's got a bit of a rounding in its belly, and it's going to just pick that up and effortlessly drag it off. And it's giving Hosana a bit of a stare over his shoulder. Look at that, though. Isn't that power amazing? I wonder where it's going to drag it to. It looks very interesting that it's kind of going that way, but it's very, very kind of cool to see it going off into the sunset, isn't it? That's amazing. What a beautiful evening we've had as well. We've got this beautiful kind of wintry colors that have come down, and poor Hosana has just been robbed of his carcass. I'm sorry, boy. He's lying behind us at the moment, just watching the hyena feeding off the remains of it. But to be fair, there's not really much left there for Hosana anyway. There's a few legs that he could have eaten, and maybe a bit of the ribs, but there really wasn't that much meat, so he hasn't lost all that much, and he at least had a good feed during the course of today and this morning, so he'll be alright, and that hyena will drag that off and into the distance, and will continue to feed on it a little further away, and poor Hosana is going to be left without it. I'll try and kind of roll backwards so that we can see Hosana as well. Look at that sky though, isn't that beautiful? It's a very, very, very pretty sky. Now we're just going to try and go back. So Roxy, you say, Hosana, please make good choices. Well, yes, it would be nice if our little boy made good choices, but he has to learn somehow, and this is how he learns, is by basically, being robbed every now and then. Will make him, if he drops a carcass, put it straight back up into a tree and not be a clown and play around with his food. There is still a big chunk that's lying under the tree that he can maybe go and grab, but he doesn't look too interested in getting it back, does he? There, just on that section there. So there's a bit of the carcass lying there that he could potentially going to feed off. I think it's just the scapula or the shoulder blade that's lying there, so I don't think that's really going to be too yummy. Right, but there we go, look at that. Now I wonder if this hyena is going to take this carcass and drag it. Now the reason why I say that, stride at the time and those kind of things, so they really are ambidextrous is probably the correct answer for it. They can use any paw that they want. I know there was some studies that were done on whether or not cats or dogs do have a paw preference and are right or left, but to be honest, I don't think there really is much difference. I reckon these animals, they use whichever one is easier to actually get to whatever they need to be doing. So whether that be swatting or pulling down an animal or holding onto an animal while they feed, they'll use either one. You see them doing it regularly with both paws, so they're well trained on both sides. They're not like Rafael Nadal, who's got one big arm and one small arm. They have equally sized front paws and back legs when it comes to kind of exercise. They exercise with them. So now you'll find that the picture is going to go black and white. It's starting to get very dark here, so we're going to just quickly switch to infrared, and so there will be a change in the picture color. There we go. Just much easier for the camera to see in infrared. It's obviously quite difficult at this time of the day. We're losing light quite quickly at the moment, and so that just helps to be able to actually see. You can see a much cleaner picture when we go into our infrared, but very, very cool to see that he's just going through his claws and his kind of paws just to make sure everything is clean. So, Mario, yes, I mean, I don't know if they're afraid, but they're respectful of hyenas instinctively. They know hyenas are dangerous. So when they're tiny little cubs, remember that that's probably one of the biggest threats that they can face. And so mom will be very defensive of them around hyenas, and they learn that from their mother, that this is an animal that they need to be very careful of. And so they kind of figure that out, and then they see mom evading hyenas by going up trees, and so they do the same, and so they become very respectful of hyenas, and they know that a hyena can be a threat. Now what happened just now with Hosana was quite interesting. He saw that hyena coming from quite far, and you could see in his mind he went through kind of two sort of scenarios. He wanted to grab the carcass and run to the tree, and I think he realized that he was never going to make it up into the tree in time without that hyena being able to drag the carcass and potentially then pulling him down and him falling and hurting himself. And so what he did then is, he tried to just kind of brave up to the hyena and charge at it. But the hyena is obviously one that has dealt with leopard before, and maybe even with Hosana, and knows that he can just run in and chase Hosana off. And so ran in and just kind of pushed Hosana away, and he knew then it's better part of this is to not fight with the hyena. There's a risk involved is too high. He can obviously get another carcass again, but if he breaks a leg or he gets bitten very badly or mauled, that can be the end of him. So leopards generally are quite clever. They know that hyena is not something to play around with. He's watching that hyena. I can hear the hyena still feeding in the thickets off to our right hand side at the moment, so he's just watching and listening, and maybe he'll do what he did last night and wait for that hyena to have its fill and then try go back and kind of eke out a few of the bones and things and recover some of the carcass. But I don't think there really is enough of that carcass to really make Hosana too kind of perturbed by what just happened. And, he had a good feed, like I say, this morning and this afternoon, so the fact that he lost it is really not that big of a deal. Right, let's see if Hosana decides whether or not he wants to go and have a little bit of a drink. In the meantime, though, let's send you back to Tingana, who's stopped having a drink now, and I wonder where he's off to.
I can see now Tingana is just very relaxed, but it's a